I know everyone here is very tired. It's been a long day, and when I look out and I see children who have made it throughout this whole procession, I think it's actually quite fitting that we end in this way, because we know that we're tired and that we march through the heat, but we follow the example of a man whose family reached to the end of their journey, but we're not given the food and the snacks and the drinks that we enjoy now. So I think it's a testament to our commitment to him that we lasted through this day. And, you know, I wanted to start with a sentence that I've heard a lot of people say today, and we say it all the time, right? We say we are here to commemorate an event that happened 1,400 years ago. And I wonder if we ever stop to think how remarkable just that one sentence is. That we remember an event that happened 1,400 years ago. That sentence is so remarkable because it makes us think about this chain, this unbroken chain of love and loyalty that started on a blood-soaked field 1,400 years ago and has spread to every corner and every space in the world. You know, I am a historian, I'm a professor, and I always tell my students, there are so many moments, think about the course of human history. There are so many moments that get lost in history. There are so many things that get unspoken in history. People's voices fade, and names and places and moments, they get lost on those dusty pages of history that nobody ever picks up and reads. So think about what it means for a moment to not be diminished by the passing of time, or by the changing of time, or the changing of norms, but instead to get more and more meaningful, bigger, more impactful the time that goes by, right? To matter more now even than it did in the moment that it happened. I mean, it's truly remarkable. And when you tell people like that, you know, they might be astounded by it, but the reality is, we know why. We know why this story and this message continues to endure. And we know why the message of Karbala shines brighter today than ever before. And the truth is, it's very simple. And it's a message that you can give to Muslims and non-Muslims, anyone. Because when Hussain ibn Ali stood against a tyrant, he taught us a lesson about justice. And when thousands gathered and a small band of followers, only 72 of them, stood up against him, it taught us a lesson about courage and not letting fear deter us from what we know is right. And when Zainab bint Ali refused to be silenced, when she was chained and imprisoned, but she kept speaking and she kept saying what was right and wrong, she taught us a lesson about resilience, about the strength of character it takes to have the strength of your convictions. And these lessons are so powerful that now, 1,400 years later, they are celebrated in every corner of the globe, all the way to this square here in Princeton, New Jersey. And it is remarkable, it really is when you stop and think about it, but we know that the message of Hussain and Zainab, the lesson of equality and justice and humanity, it didn't just apply to one time or one place or one kind of people, because there was every kind of people in Karbala, young and old, men and women, Muslims and non-Muslims, people of every class and every color and every background, a coalition of justice. It reminds me of what the Reverend was talking about, right? They were a coalition of justice and humanity. And that is why their names were never erased. That is why no one has ever been able to shove their names or this story into the back bins of history. That is why every year the lesson of Karbala breathes new life every year. Because it is not just for us. And we know this and we say this every time, but we have to really remember this and take that forward from here. And you know, in order to honor that message, I think we need to realize that the reason that it resonates so much is that in every time and every place, I mean, look around at what's happening in this country. Everybody needs to feel like no matter what, there is some people out there who will fight for change. And some people out there who will fight for humanity and who will fight for justice. And we have to honor that powerful message by speaking truly. I've said this, I said this at Imam Hussain Day. We have to have the bravery and the courage to speak truly, to call for allies, but to also be allies ourselves in causes that matter and resonate with Imam Hussain. So I just want to talk about something that's happening in this country. You know, in the city of Jackson, Mississippi, there has been no clean drinking water for weeks, going on months. And we know that the population of that city is almost 80% African American. We know that this is happening in part because of inequality and injustice. And who better than to speak out about that than us? Who knows more about what it means to be denied water than us? That is the kind of way that we make our message important in this country, in this time. We care when people are denied justice. We care when people are hungry. We care when people are sick. We care when people are fighting for freedom, because all of those things we see in the message of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. All of that matters to us, and it has to matter to us. But in return, and I want to say this today, in return, we also have to say to our friends, we care about the things that matter to you. You care about us when they target us, when we suffer as well, right? We join hands together in this way. So we have to say to our friends, we cared. I know we cared. And we continue to care about the people of Ukraine, suffering from a war that was not of their own making. But we are going to call out, and we have to say to our friends, now you stand with us. Stand with black and brown people in this world who have suffered, who have been made refugees from wars that are not of their own making. Or the people of Pakistan now drowning in floods by actions not of their own making. That is the way that we make this resonate in today's world. We be allies and we call out for allies. And living the message of Karbala today, you know, I keep saying this, but it means that we insist on telling the truth. That we call out things for the way they are, call out racism and inequality, and have the courage of our convictions. And that is a calling for everyone. It's not just for us here, it's not just for Muslims, it is for everyone. And it is difficult to do that. It can be scary sometimes to do it, right? To speak the truth or to call out what you see happening. You can feel like a lonely voice. And sometimes you think, I don't know if I want to be the only one speaking up about this issue. There's too much at stake, right? At work or with my friends or even posting on social media. It can be hard to rock the boat, and sometimes it feels like there are just too few voices. There are too many other things happening, there's not enough of us, and our voices are just getting drowned out by everything else. But I want to say to you, and you all know this, how can we follow the message of Imam Hussain alayhi salam and be scared to speak? How can we follow the message of Zainab bint Ali and be afraid to speak? A woman who was chained and dragged through the streets and deserts for hundreds of miles, who was humiliated and imprisoned, but she never stopped speaking, and she never stopped saying what was right and what was wrong. That is the lesson that we have to draw from. Remember, Imam Hussain did not set out to fight. A few people have mentioned this, right? But he didn't set out to fight. He set out because he was called. They called him for help because they were being oppressed, and he said, I will come. Because what is an imam except one who seeks to deliver justice? And for that commitment to justice, we know what happened to him. His family were starved. They were deprived of water. They were murdered one by one. The women were taken prisoners and they were tortured. But through that suffering and their commitment to justice, they changed the world. And it sounds so small to say that, right? When we say, they changed the world. But the truth is that it's true, and we know it. But I also want to say one last thing to you all about what it means when we say Karbala changed the world. Because the truth is, change did not happen overnight. It didn't happen in a week. It didn't happen in a month. It didn't happen in 1 year or 2 years. And for every time where people who believed in this message, they thought they took 10 steps forward, they probably took 20 steps back. Right? That is what it means to fight for change. Sometimes you are the only voice. Sometimes there are 20 voices. Sometimes you are the only voice, but Karbala teaches us to be that voice. It is a change that you may not always see with your own eyes. And that's also something we have to remember about Imam Hussein's life, alayhi salam. He didn't see necessarily the change with his own eyes, right? When you fight for change, you may not see it happen in your lifetime, but you stay true to the principles and that message anyway. It is a message, and we stay true to those principles, right? Even when we are few, even when we feel like we aren't moving the needle. Because it is the message of a man who stood alone on a battlefield and cried out, "Is there anyone out there to help me?" And now, 1400 years later, hundreds of millions call back to him. Because it is the message of a woman who stood chained, and she told the tyrant to his face, she said, "You will never erase our names, and you will never erase our message." That is what it means to fight for change, is that you may not always see it today, you may not see it tomorrow, you may not see it next week, but you keep fighting and you keep striving, because that is the message of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. So I hope you all return home today and remember that sometimes we measure change little by little, right? It may not be in leaps and bounds, but you keep fighting, always moving forward, because that is the message of Imam Hussain alayhi salam and Sayyidah Zainab salamun alayha. I thank you all for your time. You have done a great service to the message of Imam Hussain alayhi salam by being here, and I hope you take this message forward into your own lives every day.